Good afternoon. I'm Mark Guthrie, and I'm acting CMO of SP Corporation. And this presentation's for the Global Market Expansion Analysis and Plan, and the marketing proposals for expanding into Japan or the Philippines. Start with a little introduction. There was some references that I used, as well as recommendations from articles, like according to Henning Gloystein, a Reuters Business News contributor, said that investors are progressively thrilled regarding the prospects for more rapid growth in the solar power market in the Southeast Asian region, which has been until now a back burner solution for the question of renewable energy. Well, with both regard to the Philippines and Japan, Philippine situation is a little bit different from the situation in Japan. While Japan is trying to make up for their lack of fossil fuels and their continuing efforts to constantly import natural resources, I think they're trying to solve that problem, as well as the Philippines having lack of, say, power for certain isolated areas, like indigenous people that live in the mountains and rural villages. This would enable them to have access to renewable energy. So the time would be now for companies to act on the growing popularity of alternative sources of power. And the resources that I use is referenced in the bottom. Next slide. Next, we'll do a little bit of geographical information on these two locations. The Philippines is an island group that's located between the Philippine and South China Seas, and it is generally located due east of Vietnam and about northwest of, and it is northwest of Australia. As the Philippines consist of 7,641 islands that span from the coast of northern Luzon to the southern islands in the south, that is specifically the Zamboanga Island, which is predominantly Muslim. According to the World Fact Book Philippines page, an information site provided by the CIA, the Philippines population who are without electricity is in excess of 20 million people. So that's when I was going back to providing an alternative source of electricity due to lack of infrastructure in rural areas of the Philippines. In Japan, according to Pentland, the solar power explosion in Japan intensified dramatically this last year, as reflected by new data published last week by Japan's Renewable Energy Institute. The Japanese archipelago comprises of thousands of islands. The boat-shaped nation in the Pacific curls around the eastern coast of the continent of Asia and is comprised of four main islands: Hokkaido, Honshu, Kyushu, and Shikoku. Honshu, being the largest island, is almost the size of Minnesota, which is almost by inside, and followed by in size Hokkaido, Kyushu, and Shikoku. Both Japan and the Philippines are attempting to lessen their reliance on fossil fuel usage for energy production and are willing to investigate alternative means of power. With solar panels already reaching several parts of Southeast Asia region, solar power could be a viable option for developing countries as a reliable source of power, especially because in this particular area of Asia, they are more susceptible to natural disasters like typhoons, tsunamis, and various other situations. Next slide. Okay, so the marketing strategy: solar panels, and all necessary accessories, materials. So pretty much the specific product here is particularly the panels themselves and all applicable accessories like batteries, mounts, etc. And with the with the dominant features being in towns of construction supplies and contractor outlets, it would be very easy to market this product within the various municipalities and smaller sized towns. And from what I've noticed from other trends, um, with the very few firms that deal with this, what they usually do is make a sizable down payment, is what they ask for the customers, maybe 20 to 25% of the total cost, with monthly installments for 10 years, which, uh, from what the information provided for the those few firms that offer it, it will reduce their utility costs less than half of what it currently is, and after those 10 years, they're going to enjoy free renewable power for the rest of their lives. The only expense being maintenance and such. And with the government intervention, the government has given assistance to those who are trying to change over to a renewable power source. So pretty much little to no out-of-pocket expenses just for the initial installation, while they're only paying for the materials as well as the upkeep for that initial period of time. So next is the cultural considerations, the analysis. With the similarities between the home country and the two host nations, I found that having the two Asian nations as host marketing environments beneficial towards the introduction of new technology, specifically solar panels. The Philippines has been an entirely innovative society. For example, the Banaue rice terraces are an economical way to maximize water utilization and minimize waste in times of droughts. Personally, I've seen the Banaue rice terraces, and it is quite fascinating that they have built something that it just blows your mind when you look at it from a distance. How they have structurally set it up so all the what is this the runoff from the upper levels will lower go into the lower levels, which in all will maximize all the use of the water without having to worry about those certain periods of time where rainfall is less, like during the hot seasons, the summer. With Japan trying to stray away from fossil fuel consumption, the demands for alternative means of energy are high. With the countries being within proximity, this will allow the organization to assist with any issues that may arise and be neighboring Asian countries will improve collaboration and political relations between the two nations. Next slide. Political legal environment. So according to Velocity Global, the Philippines government vision towards business is often positive. The Philippine Development Plan 2017 and 2022 points out the government's critical points in the near future. The country has formulated a growth strategy to assist in bringing in population out of state of poverty and develop into a major power player within Asia. More specifically, the National Competition Plan supplies for increased opportunities and easy entrance into the Philippine market. The goals of the plan are punish anti-competitive practices, which is sort of a monopolistic. So they're trying to make the market more inviting for external players. Organize entry into the market for new corporations, pretty much the same as the first point. Regulatory reform and policies to enhance investment. So pretty much the government is allowing international firms to come in with the slight tax breaks and not being so strict with the enforcement of their rules. Another challenge to consider is the political climate. But since taking office in mid-2016, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has demonstrated his political vows by being a brutal leader. This is his anti-corruption, anti-drug dealing campaign, which may seem radical to certain people, but for my wife being a Philippine citizen as well as me spending my time in that country for the years 2000 to 2008, I think that it may seem radical to to one person, may seem a step in the right direction for another. So then in Japan, the role of government agencies in the economy has been evolving over the past decade, and the central government investigates into developing a long-term initiative of administrative reform and deregulation. Well, Japan being very nationalistic and very, very devoted to the country and the citizens, um, with them having an open door for foreign investors as well, is a step in the right direction for them. Next slide. So the location recommendation, with the Philippines being the younger market and with their demand for affordable and readily accessible power, the Philippines would be the best option. Also, the close proximity to Japan could pose a possible contingency plan in the event the expansion doesn't bear the most optimal results. So pretty much that's why I chose those two Southeast Asian nations, is due to their close relations, their proximity to one another, and it will lie as a possible contingency plan in the event that the market in the Philippines isn't so, as we say, if it doesn't reap the rewards that were anticipated. Next, the concise conclusion rationale. The evidence is quite strong with the following key supporting information: need for crucial infrastructure to isolated areas in the Philippines, number of inhabitants who are without electricity, which was explained in I believe, the second, third slide. An alternative means of power production, which could be effective during inclement weather, and that goes into the crucial infrastructure, because the lack of energy production in certain areas could be due to their isolation. Government initiatives assist in the initial entrance into the local market, which we talked about during the government policies. Next slide. Oh, closing thoughts. US-based SP Corporation aims to enter the solar panel market due to its emergence into several parts of Southeast Asia. Solar power could be a much viable option for developing countries as a reliable source of power, especially with recurring inclement weather that often strike Asian nations. With the Philippine government's need for critical infrastructure in isolated mountain regions, their willingness to assist and reward companies for efforts makes the market quite ideal for our entrance into the market. Well, first of all, I want to thank you both for your time. I know it must be eye-widening for such a radical idea into entering the solar power market and introducing it to foreign investors who would welcome joining us into this endeavor about expanding the corporation into both either Japan or the Philippines. In this case, the Philippines would be the primary, while Japan would be the secondary and or backup. So just want to thank you for your time and have a good afternoon.